दर्शकबिन नमस्कार। एपी टक टाइममा स्वागत छ। कोरोना महामारीका कारण संसारका सबै क्षेत्रहरू प्रभावित भएका छन्। नेपालमा पनि आर्थिक क्षेत्र निकै प्रभावित भएको छ। बैंक तथा वित्तीय संस्थाहरूले समस्या झेलिरहेका छन्। कोरोना महामारीका कारण नेपालका बैंक तथा वित्तीय संस्थाहरूले के समस्या झेलिरहेका छन् र आगामी चुनौती र सम्भावनाहरू के छन् भन्ने विषयमा कुराकानी गर्न आजको एपी टक टाइममा हामीसँग हुनुहुन्छ स्टैंडर्ड चार्टर बैंक नेपाल का CEO Anirvan Ghosh Dastidar. Mr. Dastidar, you're welcome to AP Talk Time.
Namaste and thank you. Thank you.
Let's begin with Corona pandemic itself. In what manner the banking sector in Nepal in general and Standard Chartered Bank in particular is affected by this Corona pandemic and how your sector is coping with it?
Like everywhere else in the world, the pandemic has affected all sectors of Nepal, especially travel, tourism, including worker remittances, as a lot of workers. So the overall impact on the economy has been severe, like in most markets. Now, banks are a very integral part of growth in any economy. And the whole impact is impacting banks in different ways. I won't get into a lot of detail, but one is there is a variety of relief which is coming across sectors and consumers, which banks have to support and play a part in, which immediately impacts the way banks look at their financials. So that's the first one. Second is, as credit growth comes down, there is a lot of liquidity, which the banks are saying. And having a lot of liquidity is not necessarily a great thing. So that creates an impact. At the same time, there are pressures for banks on costs at a time where revenues are not growing at a fast pace. And how do you recalibrate the costs? So like every other sector, banks are facilitators. So the impact in certain sectors have been severe. Like I mentioned, especially the hotels, the travel business, imports are down. Consumption is down. But banks are central to almost everything. Right? So banks are impacted too. And the banks need to play its part. I don't think Standard Chartered would be very different. We are almost like a local bank. Like our colleagues and like our peers in the industry, we are equally affected across the same parameters which I mentioned to you.
In Nepal, cases of coronavirus increasing day by day. And in this very risky situation, I think, your bank is managing services as usual. How are you coping with it and how are you adapting the protecting and safety measures for your staff and the customers?
These are very difficult times. There is no right answer. And like I mentioned, we are all learning and adapting. If you look at the trends in the subcontinent, it's almost become livelihood before life, right? So initially we were absolutely keeping limited services, 80% of our staff or 90% of our staff work home. As we are opening up post-lockdown, we will now have to adapt to the new normal. Now we don't know what the next phase will be. And the answer which I'm giving, I don't think is very different from the other banks. Clearly, health and safety is number one priority. So that is of utmost priority for our staff and our clients. So right now we are in a hybrid model where we are balancing health and safety first, at the same time trying to only ensure very critical services, and also having the virtual ability to service clients and do other kind of services. So we haven't reached the absolute new normal in terms of an operation. But as things stand today, it is still a balance between work from home, using digital channels, and sticking to very critical services and operations across our branches.
Your bank is known for a very good information system and information banking system. What are the systems that you have utilized in this pandemic period? Because all over the world, people are depending on digital platforms. How Standard Chartered Bank is using such platforms?
Digital is a big word now, right? I think before we get into digital, what we need to understand, the most valuable component today in the world, which was earlier oil, is data. Right? So we are investing a lot of, we are making a lot of investments and investing a lot of time into data analytics first, because you have the digital challenge here, but how we use data to predetermine the behavior of our clients is important. And what we have seen during the lockdown is, again, it was a learning, that how do you run a bank where people can't come out of their homes, they don't want to come to your branches, they don't want to touch. And hence, partnerships, collaboration with e-commerce platforms, these are some things which rapidly came. So firstly is data analytics, which I think we as an international bank are investing a lot of time in change. Second is partnerships and collaborations using AI, blockchain, and how do we come up with solutions where clients find banking easier but through multiple channels. And then playing our part in the digital roadmap of Nepal. So I'll break it up into 3 parts. And it's still a journey. I think the pandemic has taught us that what was the normal before is not going to be the new normal. And Nepal will also change. Nepal consumer behavior will change. I think our lives will change. The way we work, the way we socialize, the way we bank, the way we interact, everything will change, right? So broadly 3 parts which I mentioned.
And what do you think? There are many risks and many problems that Corona has created. Are there any opportunities that Corona has given to us?
So we are seeing it as an opportunity, because it's very easy to be pessimistic because the obvious pitfalls of Corona is very obvious, right? But Corona has also led us to other opportunities like new sectors, right? Pharma being one, healthcare being one, and also sectors which are playing its part in the new normal. So one is, clearly there's an opportunity in new sectors. Even tourism is redefining itself, right? There are different kinds of new ideas which are coming in terms of responsible and healthy tourism. I think Nepal still has a fantastic opportunity with its mountains and trekking, which has its own default social distancing, right? And how we position ourselves in this new. So there are new sectors coming up. Also, the way we operate as banks and institutions is also changing. And that also creates opportunities. And I think the banks which are going to be agile, nimble, find new ways of providing services will succeed in this new normal. So yes, we are seeing this positively. We are also very positive about Nepal's future, clearly because Nepal's macro position compared to its neighbors is far better, given its low debt to GDP ratio, very high foreign exchange reserves, and a very young population. And there's a reverse flow, like a lot of people are coming back to Nepal. Agri is another big sector which can grow. So the future it doesn't look all doom and gloom. Yes, there are challenges, but compared to the rest of the world, Nepal still has a lot of opportunities.
Before I come to the Standard Chartered Bank itself, let me ask you one personal question. You came last year, I think, in Nepal. It was a normal time. And you went through this very abnormal time, and you are talking about new normal. How do you recall your own career and experiences in Nepal?
So this is a lifetime experience for everybody, this pandemic or navigating through this pandemic. I don't think I am any different to anybody else in the world. I mean, all of you are your families, the way you are working, everything. I have my daughter who's still in Brunei where I was posted. We can't see her, right? It has a big impact on us as a family, right? She can't travel, we can't see her. So the past was very different. This is a completely different experience, right? I mean, recently we've had a bereavement in the family. We couldn't travel for the final rites. So many people are going through that. So, but we are coming to terms with it. So it is obviously, hopefully, once in a lifetime experience.
Critics say that Standard Chartered banks does not follow the standard regulations and rules of Nepal Rashtra Bank. It does not go to rural areas. It does not expand its services to rural areas. It only focuses on urban areas, and it only focuses on profit. How do you defend this?
See, firstly, our view is Factually, it's not entirely correct. I mean, it's a matter of perception. And I'm glad you asked that question because it gives us an opportunity to explain to people what we really are. So firstly is we adhere and we respect everything that the central bank lays down because we are a responsible bank and we operate in many markets. Nepal is no different. So our first point is we adhere to every regulation. There could be one or two areas where we are still in the process of adhering to, but that doesn't mean we don't follow it. That's the first point. Second is, I think what you're alluding to is our branches. Right? We are probably not there in 2 provinces, but we are there in every other province. What we want to highlight is that we are an international bank. We operate in many markets, around 60 markets, unlike our local peers who are only operating in Nepal. For us, our primary responsibility is our participation model. So the point is, what are we in Nepal and what are we here to do? So the most important thing is our network. We take a lot of pride in being Nepal's international brand ambassador. It's only us, given our presence across the world, we can take Nepal out, whether it's on road shows, whether it's proposing investments, and carrying the Nepal flag and promoting the fact that as one of the oldest foreign investors, this is a great place to do business because we are very happy this is our home. At the same time, when the international world comes into Nepal, we are the first port of call. That is our fundamental core part of our strategy in Nepal. So that's the first thing. Second is, yes, we cannot become absolutely just like some of our local peers because they have the ability to spread themselves all over Nepal because this is the only country we operate. So it's a balance for us. It is a fact that we will always be more inclined towards the valley because most of our strength is here and we are an international brand. Because we not only bank the public, we bank the banks. We bank the FIs, we bank the developmental organizations, which is very different from the local banks. We also bank the central bank. So we are the banker to the bank. So our participation model is very different.
You mean you are waiting Nepal to be more urbanized and you are waiting for more security measures for banking sectors?
No, I don't think we are waiting for anything. I'm not sure whether I've been able to. Our participation model is very different. So if I break it up, so firstly we bank the FIs, right? So we are the banker to the banks. We are in many ways, we are also the rating advisory to the government. So that's a very different area of specialization as an international bank. Second is our brand and the value we bring to Nepal as an international bank. Third is even on our retail strategy, our retail banking. As an international bank, we don't have the immediate flexibility to open lots of branches and be all over Nepal. We have to choose and we have partners. So our focus will always be predominantly the Kathmandu Valley and certain segments of the business where we think as an international brand, we can bring in best-in-class practices and products. We will continue with our outstation branches. We will hopefully expand in the future, but it will not be very fair to compare us with some of our local peers because our participation model is different as an international bank.
You define yourself as international brand, ambassador of international brand, and for the same reason, critics say that Standard Chartered Bank does not follow very core rules and regulations of Nepal Rashtra Bank, and when it tries to impose such rules, it threatens to leave, which is very risky for the government in terms of international investment. How do you respond?
So firstly, this is factually incorrect. I would ask the critics to point out which regulations we haven't followed. So far, and again, let me repeat, when we operate in a country, we respect and have an extremely high regard, and complying with local regulations is our number one priority. It doesn't matter whether there are challenges, whether we agree, disagree. That's of paramount importance. So we will continue to reiterate that we engage very closely with our regulator, we engage very closely with the Bank Association, and this whole perception that Standard Chartered Bank threatens is absolutely wrong. We have a very long-term commitment to this country, and we have a very deep-rooted culture of being compliant with local regulations.
When we are talking about Nepal Rashtra Bank, it has allocated some sectors to be productive sectors, and it has obliged some banks to invest 20% of its investment in such sectors like agriculture. But Standard Chartered Bank does not seem to be very interested in such sectors. What is the reason?
Where is the data to prove that? So let me give you an example. Today, the exposure to banks in the agri sector is only 6%, entire banking sector, right? So this question should be asked to all the banks. Again, let me repeat, if 20% is what we need to do in agri, 6% in energy by 2021, we are fully committed. And we are deploying resources. We are looking at risk participation. Again, being an international bank, there are many ways in you can meet this sector. There could be a launch of financial instruments like agri bonds. We can have risk participation measures with a lot of multilateral agencies. We can directly participate. So far, we have been adhering to all our PSL guidelines. So this whole notion that we are not interested is completely wrong.
Okay, leaving this criticism aside, let's talk about some positive things. How Standard Chartered Bank is fulfilling its corporate social responsibilities and how this bank is cooperating with many sectors.
So firstly, if you just look at our brand promise, which is here for good, right? So it's not just about the financials in a country. Our purpose statement globally is driving commerce and prosperity in all the markets we operate. So one is, besides CSR, which I alluded to earlier, is being an international bank, bringing the networking, bringing investments in, and bringing commerce, prosperity, all of that. Now on CSR, we have obviously a very long-term commitment and projects which we run in countries. Give you one example, Future Makers. Now Future Makers is like an ecosystem where we drive financial literacy, sustainability, and a program which allows, in this case, say Nepal, deprived young girls, right, or rescued, trafficked young girls, say with Mighty Nepal, who we partner very strongly, kind of develop a livelihood which is sustainable, right? And we work very closely on that. So to give you an example, we've just financed sanitary pad making machines for these young girls, where they are able to manufacture, they're able to sell, they're able to create a life cycle which allows them to be commercially independent. And there is a lot of financial literacy. That's very long term. That's one example. In the past, the bank's flagship program, Seeing is Believing, we have kind of invested millions in terms of eradicating curable blindness in Nepal through one of the big eye hospitals here. So this is very long term, where we continue to work with a certain section of society we can't. If you look at the pandemic, we've obviously today contributed more than $500,000, which is 6-7 crores Nepali rupees, across various programs. I think the key part of our CSR activities is communities. We are very passionate about communities and impacted communities and how we support these communities. So even if you, without getting into detail, even on the pandemic side, we've got into sponsorship programs where we are educating children of affected families given the pandemic. Or we are helping renovating infrastructure, which given that there is no tourism now, can be brought up the curve in terms of whenever tourism opens, they can reoperate or get back on their feet. So a lot of community work, it's a large sum of investment. And the sole purpose is to stand by communities which have been impacted with this pandemic and who need a lot of time to recover.
What do you think are the chief characteristics of your bank that sets it apart from rest of the banks in Nepal?
I probably have to repeat, we are the only bank in Nepal which has a footprint across the world, which means it gives Nepal a footprint. Right? Any international investor coming into Nepal, whichever part of the world they are, and at least in the markets they operate, will first talk to us because we've been here 33 years. We are one of the oldest foreign investors here, and we are extremely committed about Nepal. So when you talk about positives, who better than Standard Chartered Bank to wave Nepal's flag and make positive comments on Nepal and convince people that Nepal is a place which has a great future, a great country, great set of people, and a very helpful regulator which will allow anybody to come and invest and grow here. I think that sets us apart, because that is the fundamental character of Standard Chartered Bank in Nepal, which is its network. There are many other things, but I think that kind of keeps us apart.
But people say Standard Chartered Bank is so standard that some lower incoming people and middle incoming people even cannot access the bank because of many rules and regulations. What do you say about it?
See, there will always be perception and criticism which we keep trying changing. And every feedback is valuable feedback. It goes back to our participation model. I mean, anybody and everybody is free to walk into our bank. Look at the number of pensions we distribute for the British Gorkhas, right? That again is our service to the country. I mean, the entire British Gorkha forces, pensions are distributed by Standard Chartered Bank across the country. And they bank with us. And they come from rural areas, they come from. Yes, it's a fact that we may not be able to satisfy the requirements for everybody in terms of thresholds. Our participation model, as I mentioned, is we are handicapped in certain areas. And we will have to stick to our participation model as an international bank. But we are open for everybody. And if you're talking about standards in terms of requirements, we adhere to the best international practices. One of the roles we play is to bring a lot of standards into the Nepal banking industry. I think we take a lot of pride in working very closely with the Nepal's banking industry to bring it to the next level. Whether it's Basel II, Basel III, regulations on financial crime. So our standards are stringent because we follow international best practices, and we also bring in best-in-class practices, which we kind of share with our peers and our regulators. So our standards will always be a bit different.
How do you see the prospect of banking sectors in Nepal in the days to come? And what do you think government should do in this pandemic period to settle all these issues for the banking sector?
So this is an answer which probably not everybody will agree. We think the Nepal Rashtra Bank has taken a step in the right direction. So I would say the banking industry is in a stage of evolution because it is moving towards fair practices and it is moving towards a scenario where it's not only the margins, it's about discipline on balance sheet, it is about discipline in pricing, and it is about how we reach out to the consumers and give a very fair and a level playing field. So it's a stage of evolution. I think we are moving into the next stage as banks. And the prospects are great. I mean, look at Nepal. It has a very stable banking industry. Banks are well capitalized. Banks are very liquid. And some of the recent policies which the Nepal Rashtra Bank has come up with are all steps in the right direction. Now, obviously, there is a bit of fine-tuning which is required. And there is a very healthy engagement process, which will always continue. It's the same in every market. Nepal is no different. So we see the prospects of the Nepal's banking industry as an evolution and probably in the right direction. We might see capital markets come into Nepal very soon, a bond market come in. So there are a lot of exciting opportunities because Nepal is now taking the leap into the next stage.
And finally, if I have missed anything that you want to tell to your customers, clients, government, or Nepal Rashtra Bank?
Please see us as Nepal's brand ambassador, right? We genuinely, and we take a lot of pride, privilege, and it's an honor for us to wave the Nepal flag every time we step outside of this country. And we promote and advocate about Nepal. That needs to be recognized. That makes us very different. Second is, we are no different from local banks. we adhere, we respect, we support every regulation which comes up. It doesn't matter if we have challenges, every bank has its challenge, and it is the same across all our markets. And we are open for everybody. Where we can help, we help. Where we can't, we partner with somebody else. But we are as local as any other local bank in Nepal.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your time and views.
Thank you very much. Namaste.
दर्शकवृन्द, आजको एपी टक टाइममा हामीले नेपालको ब्याङ्किङ सेक्टरले भोगिरहेको चुनौती र आगामी सम्भावनाबारे नेपाल स्थित स्ट्यान्डर्ड चार्टर ब्याङ्कका सिइओ अनिर्वाण घोष दास्तिदारसँग कुराकानी गरौँ। अर्को श्रृङ्खलामा अर्को अतिथिसँग उपस्थित हुनेछौँ। AP1 हेर्दै गर्नुहोला। नमस्कार।
It's an AP1 presentation.